All right, welcome back everyone. A very good afternoon to all, young geospatial professionals, students, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you have a great lunch. I'm Reginald from the Singapore Land Authority and I'm your host for the GeoEducation panel this afternoon. To those who have attended our sessions in the morning, welcome back and we're happy to have you with us once again. In conjunction with the Singapore Geospatial Festival 2021, we are organizing RGYF for the third year running to build interest, awareness, and a community around geospatial professionals amongst youth worldwide. This is our third panel sessions under RGYF, and it will consist of the academics, the public, and private sector representatives who will share more about the geospatial education in global institutions, as well as the growing geospatial trends and industry demands. Today, we're excited to introduce the GeoEducation panelists to share more about their geospatial journey. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to leave them in the Q&A chat box, and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. And thank you. Without further ado, let us warmly welcome Joseph from the Ministry of Education Singapore, who will introduce our speakers for this panel. Joseph, please.
Thank you so much, Reginald. Can I just encourage the audience? We can't see you. So it'll be very nice if, as we are discussing, introducing ourselves, you can start to post your questions so that at some point in time, we can interact with you and engage with what you have on your minds. So we have got 4 brilliant speakers today. I'll get them to introduce themselves. We'll begin with Sulin first.
Thank you, Joseph, and good afternoon, everyone. So in Australia, where I'm based at the moment in Melbourne, we always begin by an acknowledgement of country. So I would like to acknowledge the people of the Wurrung and Burrung language group of the Eastern Kulin Nation, on whose unceded land we conduct the business of the university. I would like to respectfully acknowledge their ancestors and elders past and present. So once again, good afternoon. My name is Sulin Choi. I'm a professor of geospatial science in RMIT University, specifically in the area of satellite navigation, such as GPS. I'm also the director of the RMIT Satellite Positioning for Atmosphere, Climate and Environment Research Center. So in the spirit of today's forum or today's session, RMIT University is a dual sector university. So we do offer programs, particularly in surveying and geospatial science, from vocational education, from certificate level, all the way to higher education, a bachelor degree to a PhD research degree. It is also, or RMIT, the geospatial discipline is also one of the largest and also the most diverse group here in Australia. So that's my very short introduction. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you so much. We'll hear from Sulin a bit more later. We'll go to Yichen now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wang Yichen. I'm a faculty member of the Department of Geography, National University of Singapore. In Geography department, I'm mainly involved in teaching GIS-related modules, such as applications of GIS and remote sensing, and also cartography and visualization. My research interest involves a lot of GIS and remote sensing applications, and especially related to the applications on ecosystems and health and disease, environment-related topics. I have been interested in promoting GIS education in the university, so I was involved in setting up the GIS minor and also the MSc in Applied GIS program for the department. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to the gentleman on the panel. First, Chon.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Chalermchon Sathirapot, but you can call me just Chon. It's easier to remember. I'm a faculty member of the Department of Survey Engineering, Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Our department is the only department in Thailand that offers the degree in surveying from bachelor degree to PhD. My background is quite similar to Surin. So we are working, myself is working on the GNSS research. And I'm very happy to be here and to be able to share idea and other things with all the speakers here. Thanks.
Thank you. Last but not least, very handsome gentleman, Saibal. Saibal, you are muted.
No problem. Okay, good. Sorry about that. My name is Saibal, and thank you, Joseph, for the initial introduction. I am among all this. I'm a geospatial entrepreneur. Okay, so from that point of view, I was in urban technologies, and today I am actually co-founder of a Singapore company called Urbanetic. We are a 3D geospatial software platform to create parametrically modeled, I will talk about it later, digital twin of cities. And as you know, the urban digital twin of cities are the exact digital replicas of real cities. So that's our business. We talk about it later on. That's my initial introduction. Thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you. So once again, audience, we have the Q&A function. So we'll be discussing some topics related to today's panel first, about 30 minutes. I hope that there'll be lots of questions for us to take after 20-30 minutes. So I think let's jump into this very interesting idea that Sulin, Yichen, and Chon, they come from institutes where education is really in its variety, in its full glory. Not just PhD, but also certificates, modules, minors, master's degree. So I want to ask a bit more about this, the three of you. Maybe we start from Yichen. Is it that geospatial education, it's really about, fitting to the needs of the person, not so much of this formal education that everyone must go through, but depending on where you are, which career you are in, what life stage, you learn according to the size or the depth you need. That's why we have this kind of range of options. Yichen?
Yes, I think definitely GIS, just like we have the minor and we also have the applied GIS program, it depends on the interest and also your application domain. That shows how GIS can potentially be used in different kind of application and different kind of scenarios. Yeah, so I would say yes. It depends on your personal maybe career relevance or job scope. That would have a different kind of application rather than a fixed frame for everybody to learn from. Yeah, there's always the basic things that we start with, but then from there would be all sorts of possibilities depending on your interest and application domain. Yeah.
Sulin, is it a similar setup in RMIT where you have the certificates for people who are looking for bite-sized learning, and then the PhD for people like you who drill deep into a particular part of the technology?
Yes, the short answer is most definitely Joseph. And I also just wanted to make the point that if anything, I think the pandemic of COVID has accelerated a lot of this demand for bite-sized pieces for people to upskill. And at the same time, what we have also seen that, industry is also adapting or moving towards digital transformation. And therefore, the requirement around, education, the traditional qualification about, having a degree, what does it mean in the future, industry, we are seeing those change. So the short answer is from RMIT's perspective, we do have those flexible pathways and options for students, whether you want a bite size, a minor, major, an extended major, but nevertheless, the offering in RMIT is around, I would like to call it a T distribution, whereby, geospatial would cover the breadth of across disciplinary, but at the same time, the depth in the geospatial discipline as well.
Thanks so much. Saibal, I'll come to you after I ask Chon to describe his program a bit more, because as a company, as an entrepreneur, you must be excited about the human resource that will come out from these universities. But Chon, I think that you mentioned a term which our audience may be unfamiliar, land surveying.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe you talk a bit about that and then the relevance to GIS and geospatial tech.
Yeah, actually, let me start with the situation in Thailand. When we first start our course in Thailand, we were looking at the land surveying platform and people and workforce to fulfill the need of the land parcel and other things in Thailand. But later on, as the technology evolving, we are getting more involved in a different field of study. For example, GIS, remote sensing, GNSS, and other new technologies. And I would be very much confirm that the geospatial profession or education in Thailand and also in Southeast Asia is in line with the global trends and technologies. And and if we look at the ASEAN country, you might have heard of the mutual recognition arrangement or MRA of surveying profession among ASEAN countries. This will enable us to work in any country in this region. And of course, the conclusion is similar to the two previous speakers that we can see the bright sides of a geospatial profession in this region. Yeah.
So, Chon, can I say that the more experienced land surveyors who might not have the chance to go through your program right now, they can actually go to RMIT to do a bite-sized course or come to NUS to kind of top up what they know already?
Yes. We, for example, my university have a kind of MOU with Institution of Technology of Bandung in Indonesia. We have a kind of set up the twinning program where we can easily transfer the credit each other and sending the student to exchange the different courses. That is one of example where we can try to combine our strength from each institutions. Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely because Bandung is such a nice place to go to actually.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully after this panel discussion, there'll be also arrangements with RMIT and NUS.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Would be
Saibal,
good.
so you have these exciting developments in the education landscape. We know that the tech manpower crunch is pervasive. What do you think about what you heard?
Well, that's definitely encouraging. 5, 6, 7 years. Let's say we started off in Melbourne University as aspiration to become an entrepreneur, for example. We looked into the future and said, look, yes, you could have unicorns in geospatial too. It's not that geospatial is not that. It's very exciting, especially because of digitalization that's going on. Okay, so to me, we've had tough time in our team. There was only one geospatial guy educated, I mean, from the university, and rest were all from all of other stream. But today, I think with what I heard is very encouraging. That means we need a steady stream of talent, especially in geospatial. The challenge that I think we have is we need a cross industry talent. We just don't need a geospatial or GIS to solve a particular problem, because the problems in the industry that we solve are cross-discipline. And geography and geographical information is a major important part of it, but then there are other things. I think, to me, I would say that yes, it's definitely encouraging, but also in our end, we are basically, would we take a GIS guy to teach him a little bit of planning, a little bit of IT, a little bit of other stuff, and the vice versa. So I think still there is a room to grow where the GIS program has to be more cross-discipline.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing is that you need people who know enough to interact with the experts who drill deep so that they can facilitate that cross-disciplinary problem-solving kind of effort.
Yeah, I think this is where I always tell people this, what I heard from my VC when I graduated in 1982. Vice Chancellor said, in the university, you don't become engineer, you learn how to think. That is our job. Okay, you start engineering to learn engineering to solve problem when you work in an industry. So better equipped. So what I heard from them is solid you build a solid base for thinking. And if you don't know how to think, a problem solving is no use how many degrees you have. So I think from that respect, a fantastic program, I would say, with all the 3 universities are offering. The foundation building, that's important.
I actually have a lot of confidence in the programs at the universities because I have some exposure to what they do. But I think it's good to hear from Sulin, Yichen, and Chon to respond to your concern that although they call themselves geospatial or GIS programs, but the program is actually really quite broad and quite diverse. So maybe Sulin, you can describe a little of the curriculum that you have there?
Yeah, so most definitely. So at the moment, Joseph, in RMIT University, as I mentioned, we have quite a range of entry point. So I'm going to talk specifically around the bachelor degree, which is at the end of the year 12, which is high school. You enter RMIT University higher education around degree. We do have 2 programs offering. One is a Bachelor of Applied Science in Surveying. So we heard from Chon earlier about, what is surveying. It is one of our most popular program within the school because what that degree would entail is that students are able to then, move into industry to be a practicing licensed surveyor because it's an accredited degree program. The second program is the Bachelor of Science, Geospatial Science. And this is where, what Saibal mentioned around interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary type of research. So just giving you an example of the curriculum within the Bachelor of Geospatial Science, in addition to, the foundation block of what geospatial science is about, students are also exposed to, for example, environmental science, ecology, human geography, and at the same time, there's also some flexibility for students to branch into space science. Some of the space science courses, if they're interested in as well, connecting the use of space technology and geospatial technology. So this is just some of the flavor within, the science discipline, but there's also, as I mentioned, flexibility around students picking up, cross-disciplinary courses as well, such as entrepreneurship, which is what Saibal has, gone down that path. And I do see that, again, this is a very, emerging area whereby students, might require, those particular knowledge and expertise around business management, around, entrepreneurship, startup. So that's something also, an option for our student.
Thanks so much, Sulin. As you're talking, I can't help but think about Bangkok because that's like kind of a place that we travel to so often in Singapore, but we can't do that now. And I think that Chon's workplace, the location is so perfect for real world problem solving, right? You're surrounded with authentic environments. Just wondering whether, your programs do engage students in, just beyond the campus and talk about the real world problems that Saibal is so, wanting the workforce to have.
Yeah, this is one thing that we get the feedback from our users. For example, the company that employ our students and they often say that they want the ready to work student to get into the real work, so that our curriculum has to be adapted to fit the need of the users. So we try to set up some kind of a milestone subject where we can integrate the knowledge from several subjects. For example, GIS, remote sensing, GNSS, geodesy, or other field of study to be able to apply in the real world case. So that's make the student ready to combine their knowledge to be able to solve the real world problem before they graduate and they enter to the real world. So it's something to do with our curriculum revisions that have to be happen every 5 years. But when we look at the rapidly change of the technology, I think 5-year cycle would be a little bit too long. Maybe we have to think of shortened period of the revision of the curriculum, because it's geospatial technology. We can see that the trend and the technology has changed really quickly. Yes.
Thanks so much, and I hope to visit Bangkok soon. I think probably soon. Yeah. So Yichen, I think that our pitch to Saibao is quite good. I think that he's nodding a little, but let's bring a smile to his face. Can you just share with us maybe some of the recent graduates from your Masters of Science in GIS program? What do they do now? As testimony to assure Saibao that he should be looking at these 3 universities graduates.
Students in our program, they go to different sectors, private and public. Quite a few of them go into actually SLA and also LTA and quite a few other government agencies, and mainly dealing with that would be definitely real world issues, how they use geospatial related technologies, as well as other GIS or environment related modules experience they gain from the program in their real world setting. Yeah. In the private companies, quite a few of students actually go into the drone companies from what I heard. Yeah. So I think that's also the growing sector we are seeing, which is more and more real-time data or more fine data being collected, and students or graduates would be handling that kind of information for that. Yeah. So as you know, we also have the new College of Humanities and Science, and a major part of the new curriculum is to highlight that interdisciplinary curriculum. Yeah. So colleagues who are going to teach the module, they really have to discuss. It's not just like I take one lecture, the other take the other lecture. To fill in the 13 weeks of teaching, but we have to think about some sort of common problems that can be addressed from different disciplines and work together to come up with the new curriculum. So I think we are moving toward that trend, and definitely appreciate that when students graduate, they need that kind of interdisciplinary training. Yeah.
Right, I'm looking at the question Q&A. We have some, but we definitely can do with more. So I encourage the audience to post your questions or comments for us. There's one comment about how geospatial GIS courses are always in geography departments. But when I hear Yichen talking about how the way university curriculum is changing, it doesn't matter where the course is found. You can always offer it as a module, as a minor, so and so forth. But we'll get your comments on this question later. But now back to Saibao. I don't think you're quite, excited about the prospects from the 3 universities. Maybe, you can share a bit more about your company, the kind of problems that you solve, and the kind of people that you actually crave for.
Yeah, I think there's some distinction. I think Sulin has touched. It's today is we talk about entirely a digital world, right? So how do you take a classical GIS education, which you definitely must have as a foundation, and then take that into the digital world and say solve a real life problem? So our company is about very fundamentally the 3 things: places, spaces, and people. Okay, so your object, the coordinates, it's anything. I mean, if you have an opportunity, if you work for, let's say, Starbucks, for example, they started in this thing long time ago, where they want to go to a city and say, when do you know this computer system will give you some sort of a message, say you need another outlet and it should be here and its size should be this and it should cater to so many people, for example. Very simple, right? Now, to get to that level, you need to really write a lot of know-how you need to have. You need to have how people are moving from one place to another place, where they work, where they live, where they go for entertainment. All those, it's all geographic information. And then you marry it with basically, if this is the kind of people profile in this area, they like a design of my outlet like that. They like to have, then I need a 2-floor or a 1-floor will do. All these come together, and then you try to put together solutions. If you walk into the Starbucks GIS department, and you will really see that, and they're very well paid, by the way. And so what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to encourage people because even in the freelancer geospatial expert digital programmer, of course you need to do programming coding, can draw up to $90 an hour. Okay, and it's happening. So this is a huge prospect in there. However, the idea is that your mindset should be problem solving. So at some level of time, you need to understand. And I think this is not about, of course, you need the foundation, but you also need to have an imagination. Our problem is that even when we have the software, we go to a client and they have all the GIS experts, young boys and girls are there. And as long as I am there, everything is fine. When I go back, hey, your software doesn't work. The issue is not the software. The issue as a planner is the imagination. And that imaginative thinking only can come from the universities or the higher, I mean, whether it is higher learning or not higher learning, doesn't matter. Your education, that institution should teach you the imagination and thinking. And that's what we are lacking. Our problem is not the certificates that we produce. Our problem is the imagination, imaginative expression or imaginative thinking.
Thanks so much, Saibal. On this note about education, I think that we need to go even further down upstream in general education. That's my area of work, and I see a question from Nathaniel. I don't know whether Nathaniel can join us later. Speak, share a bit more about your questions about geography lessons and geospatial programs. So if the organizers can help. Later, when we hit the Q&A, we can bring Nathaniel live, on the panel. But I jump back to Yi-Chen first. The question about, most GIS courses and geospatial courses are in geography departments. Maybe we can share a bit more about why is this so? And does this really pose implications on the reach of such programs? What do you think?
I think it may have to be related to all those quantitative revolution back in 1960s, where geography has, started to highlight that quantitative part of the discipline. Yeah. So yes, traditionally you would see most of the GIS modules that's over by the geography department. But I think that is also because geography we study exactly what Saibal mentioned: place, space, and people. That's what we study. Yeah. We in terms of what we study, and if we say this is a tool or the science that we use, that makes sense for GIS to be based in geography. But this does not mean that only geography department offers GIS or geospatial related training, as you can see from the panel and their institute. And even in Singapore is the same. In engineering, there is computer engineering related topics that more focused on buildings, constructions. In School of Design and Environment, there's also related trainings there. Yeah. So I would say yes, it is based in geography, but for a very good reason, that because geography we study place, space, and also the environment. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll ask Chon and Sulin now about this idea of imagination. I think that Saibal has brought up something important for us to think about. So Chon, about this imagining problems and then imagining solutions. Sometimes GIS is seen as a tool and you are caught in the software. You are just trying to work the software. You don't think out of the software. Is this a problem that we should think harder about?
Yeah. But I for my personal opinion, I think it's something to do with the mindset of the student, where they have to learn how to do the lifelong learning and trying to improve their skill in any way they can. And also the mindset that they have is not just to be able to use the software, but they have to think much wider or broader to be able to adapt or try to tailor-make the software to suit the real world problem or the customer need whatever the customer want. So they should have a mindset that they should be able to be, if you become the master student or PhD, so you should be able to have a kind of skill to develop your own package or other thing that a lot deeper than the bachelor student. But at the bachelor level, we tend to train them for the basic or fundamental skill. But right now, we try to improve our curriculum by having them to build up the kind of milestone subject and other things that they can see the real world problem more clearly and try to coach them or train them to use the proper tools or proper knowledge to solve such problem. So we are trying our best to do this in order to make our students to be ready for work as much as possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I jump to Sulin, I was reminded when Saibal was talking about my own education experience. My instructors, they're always reminding me to not be in the computer lab all the time. I need to go out to look at the things I'm trying to study, you know.
Mhm.
And then the term they use is don't be a GIS monkey. You know, you keep doing tricks with the software, right? And then they said that also you must go to the ground to do ground truthing. You must go to the field to understand how the environment is constructed. And it left this impression that I must always understand the context in which I'm applying GIS to solve the problem. Yeah. So I think that I like how Sulin acknowledged people as she begins, you know. That works in your consciousness about how it is about people that we are doing all these things for. Yeah. So Sulin, can you just give us a bit more wisdom and enlightenment?
Wisdom. When you talk about, you being a lab and a monkey, I'll share this with you as well. I, go to class and I tell my student, nowadays with digital technology, equipments are becoming cheaper. It's becoming a lot easier to use. I could train the monkey to press the button, and all I have to pay the monkey is just peanuts. And the monkey will press the button, will work long hours. The monkey probably won't complain and keep doing it. And I would challenge my students, everyone could go out with a surveying equipment, collect the data, bring the data back to the office. But what does the numbers mean? How do we interpret those information? How do we infer useful information and turn data, which is perhaps numerical values or binary numbers, into insightful information that could solve real world problem? And I take Chon's point and also Saibal's point is about training students to have enterprise skills, team player, critical thinking, problem solving. And I think, students sometimes are quite afraid, in making mistakes with their assessment or assignment. But I tell students, this is where we get to learn. This is how we learn, instead of focusing, I need to get 100%. Sometimes if you end up with 80, you end up with 90%. It is the journey, it is the experience. And often for most of us, we learn best when we make an error. We learn best when we make a mistake. So that is my wisdom, Joseph, and back to you.
Thank you so much. At this point, I don't know whether we can bring Nathaniel. You want to share a bit more and elaborate your questions about geography lessons and also problem solving? Is it possible? Organizers? Okay, here comes Hi. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so my concern was that when I was taking geography lessons in secondary school, like it's similar to other humanities subjects like social studies. They expect you to write something in a given format and all that. And because I'm the type to just go against this kind of rules, because I want to express my answers in the ways that that make sense, rather than answering in their format, which I found dumb. So somehow I got a score of 5. Yeah, 5 is like the lowest I have out of all my subjects during the GCE N level. But to me, I think that that doesn't matter because like I put in the chat, theory is just theory. What we need are real problem solvers. And I am in a public transport background myself. So as you might know, you might have heard of SMRT. It doesn't have a good reputation locally, to be honest, because we had many train breakdowns and all that. So I did my part to improve public transport just by giving feedback to the operator, and this is why I'm looking for people doing the same. So bringing it back to the geography perspective, what we are learning is kind of theory based. How do we apply it to like now we are all talking about real world problems. What are the real world problems that geospatial can solve and all that? It's definitely endless now because even in public transport, we use real-time passenger information. That's a form of geospatial data that you can get from the Land Transport Authority's data mall. So I'm not sure about you, Joseph, or like what is the current geography lessons like nowadays as compared to my time like a few years ago.
Nathaniel, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You can just call me Nat lah. Don't call me
Nat.
Nutella, can really. Yeah.
Okay, Nat. Can you share a bit about background? Are you a young adult working in your first job? Are you a student still? Because compared to us, you are like really young.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I'm 22. So I'm currently a part-time diploma student enrolled in engineering rapid transit technology. So that's the MRT course. In case you're wondering what rapid transit technology is, and so it's a part-time course. So I'm not sure if I am eligible for what Vanessa sent regarding the AGC, but it's fine. So I took my GCN level in I think 2015. So not sure how geography lessons are like now, if you know.
Thank you. So, audience, if anyone wants to come up like that, I think it's great. It's really great. Having a participation in this way. So first of all, I always tell my students, or rather my former students, that before a test or exam, I will tell them that nothing you don't know a good test score, a good grade will never make up for what you don't know. Right? It's an illusion. And a bad test score or a bad grade will never take away what you know. Yeah, so I think that, despite your score, I don't think that it'll make you a lesser person, right? Obviously, you are not. So that's great. So I think just quickly for general education, for secondary level and pre-U level, so what we do now in the curriculum is we focus a lot on field work. Yeah, the field. We make time for students to go into the field by number one, creating time in the curriculum. Secondly, reimagining fieldwork to somewhere local so that it is feasible. In the past, it's difficult because you must travel to like a river far away. You must travel to a mountain in Malaysia. So not right now, field is done by students in the neighborhood, in their school compound, around their houses. Yeah, so that's what we do. Because we think that the field is very powerful in activating their curiosity. And the field is also a place where the context is familiar. So they don't have two things to grapple with, right? They know the context, and then when they learn the skills and knowledge from classroom, they can apply in problem solving. And the third part is that we have deployed a nationwide web GIS for all students in geography. So we call it EduGIS. So this portal allows teachers to use all kinds of map content, including remote sensing data, to kind of imagine the field where the child may not be aware of. So if the child is going to Alexandra Food Market, the GIS allows the child to look at the context, the larger space, and then they can go to the field to get to know the people. So that's how geography is changing a little. But I hope to talk to you more so that we can even be better. But I will not take time from the panelists, right? So, Saibal, so this is a young man who has shared, what he thinks.
Interesting. Again, as I said, that you answered my answer, which is field work. And while doing a field work, you will pick up where your interest is. You need to have a deep interest in some subject if you want to, the curiosity. Everyone is not curious about everything, but all of us are curious about one or two things in life. So pick that curiosity and then go deeper, because there is a mine of gold in everything. It depends upon how deep you can listen and how deep you can see. So I think, as I said, I like what Nat said. So to figure out if your interest in locomotive or your interest is in mass transit or okay, you can find out. Say, for example, I always say that what happens if the self-driving vehicle technology becomes very reliable, right? Then you don't need any infrastructure like mass transit and all, because it's too expensive. Once you build it, it's there. However, I just want a phone call. The car comes in and I don't have to really walk from one end to other with 3 kids or 4 kids, and I go door to door, okay? And it's efficient, for example. So the problem then comes is that if you are stuck with an area curiosity of MRT or LRT, then what do you do when there is no MRT or there is no LRT, right? So that is where it's imagination important, that you go as broad as possible. And that's why I like universities. They give you an education to think as broad as possible, so that later on in your life, when the industry changes, the world changes, everything other changes, you know how to move from one place to another place. Look at pandemic today, right? Or anything changing, right? You could actually find your space in. So you are kind of immune to changes that we go through. And that's where you need the university to have a more broader education. So that's what I would say. As I said, I like the idea that you're curious about one thing. I also wanted to advise you that have your imagination as broad as possible. The sky is the limit, so that when we go through changes, you can immediately find something else which is also interesting, and then you build or hone your expertise in that different area, but related.
Thanks, Saibal. Okay, let's jump to the questions, and let me just look at whether there are other questions which we can answer. Right, so there's one from Vanessa about the kind of companies, sectors that students consider sexy. Just wondering whether I think Yichen has talked about where her students go to. How about Sulian and Sean? What kind of industries or sectors do your students go on to?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, Vanessa, the definition of sexy is different for everyone, and I want to take the point that Saibal made, that all of us, we don't need to be curious about everything around the world, but at least what excites you and where your passion is. And I think this comes down to that question as well. Where do our graduate goes? At the end of their degree. So the majority of our graduate would end up in the construction and infrastructure engineering or industry. So surveyors, making an impact in the infrastructure and construction industry. We also have our geospatial science graduate, for example, ended up working in non-for-profit organization, works for councils around management of environmental related issues, to all the way of even now I'm starting to see large companies like telcos interested in students with geospatial science background, because that will help telcos manage their asset manage their resources as well. So drone is just one of them. Autonomous vehicle, autonomous industry is another one as well. So essentially, I think the value of geospatial science is around the where question, answering the where question, the place, space, and people that Saibal mentioned.
Yeah, I like to give an example that I recently discovered. So I happen to have worked in Bell Labs, so I have an interest in telecommunication too, right? Suddenly I found out, as the industry in the telecommunication is changing now, that the tower operators are real estate guys, and the network operators are the networking companies, and managed service providers are system integrators. Then I thought, how do they communicate with each other, right? And towers and infrastructure, and with 5G coming in, everything is about geography, right? So we suddenly did some analysis. We quickly did some basically a proof of concept, and ran some financial model. And that could be one country that we go in and tested, which has around over 50,000 towers. We thought that in 3 years' time, if there is a geospatial company can have a profit of at least $10 million US, even if they get 10% of the market. So you see, it's the imagination. So, and I'm not a geospatial educated guy, but I learned on the trade. So what I'm trying to say, get the foundation thing done, physics, chemistry, math, geography, then come into the industry, find your interest, and you will find your way. And that's what I have to say. So, but get the foundation thing good, get a good, proper formal education. Otherwise you will have problem in thinking and problem solving, because when you start working, there is no time to go through the basics. It should be flowing in your bloodstream, actually, the basics. Then everything is easy.
Yeah, I'll ask John about his graduate soon. But then, Vanessa, you talk about an ASEAN Geospatial Challenge. Maybe before we wrap up, we'll invite you to share information about this so that audience and the panelists will have information about this later. John, so I don't know, I'm actually quite interested, how you became got into geospatial, because I think when you were younger, there was no geospatial, no GIS to begin with, right? And how do you journey to this point, and then now you have a program that is offering PhD and all that?
Yeah, at my time, because we only looking at the land surveyors and to serve the countries, especially for the governmental agencies, we can see a lot of career opportunity for the student who want to assure that when they graduate, they will have a job in the government agency. But with the time evolving, I can see that the term of sexy thing is changing now. In terms of my student, I can simply look at my student who graduate within this 5 years. They are now defining sexy definition is differently. Now they are looking at their own startup company rather than working in a company. And another group is just looking for the international job opportunities rather than the local company in their own country. They want to gain more experience internationally so that they can create their own values. And once they start to work for 2 or 3 years, then they come back, set up their own company. This is how I look at my students, and they want to be independent and also have their own company, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, it's so awesome, it's a great future for geospatial professionals, right? You have the government services, mission, and then you get to do startups, you go international and all that. What a great end to this panel discussion, Sean. Thank you so much. Yeah. Vanessa, you want to just share a bit about the ASEAN competition? Okay, Vanessa is coming on.
Hello, hi everyone. Yes, we just launched the second ASEAN Geospatial Challenge about this morning, actually a few hours ago. And we have 4 countries that's participating as well. Besides Singapore, there is Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. Yes, and we have got a number of very interesting project winners who presented the projects this morning as well. And we're looking to have more participants this year.
So can I make a request, Vanessa? Can ASEAN kind of competition include Australia as well?
Yes, perhaps someday soon. We need to have somebody to organize the local national competition.
Okay, thanks so much. I think that I'll just go around the table. The panelists, we have just a bit more time to just share just one thought, that you think that the audience should have, about the future of the geospatial sector. Let's go again, Sulin, Yichen, Chon, then Saibal. So Sulin, back to you.
Okay. What would I say? I would say, just be brave, pursue, if you have a passion, pursue your passion. Be curious, because, I think it is the curiosity that will keep you going to pursue something. And no matter what, you choose at the end of the day, be it surveying, geospatial, or something else, essentially it is just a stepping stone in terms of, education's perspective. Because ultimately when we, work in industry, including myself, and I'm sure the same with Yi-Chen and Chon here, even though we are an educator, but, every day we work on our research, and the research are all about problem solving and not necessarily just within, the area of geospatial science. So nevertheless, if you choose to go into geospatial science, what I can tell you is certainly in RMIT, our graduate employability is close to 100%. It's sitting around more than 90% graduate employment rate, which is an indication that, there's a good career prospect after our degree as well. So.
Thank you, Sulin. Yi-Chen?
I'll just add one more C to Sulin. In addition to curiosity, I think creativity is also important in terms of how we solve the problem. So we talk about GIS, Geographic Information System or service. I think don't let that frame of computer just limit your imagination, limit your creativity. And I think get a broad training from general education or from your discipline, and then apply that. I think that's very important. Yeah. And definitely geospatial, this is still, I think, very promising area with all sorts of possibilities. And with, I think in the future, more and more real-time data become available, that shows even more possibilities there. Yeah. So just add one more C there. Creativity. Yeah.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, similar to the two previous speaker, but just very short one is that I would confirm that the employment rate is very high also in Thailand, and you have a very bright future. And apart from that, I can observe my own observation to see my students that they have a really happy life in university.
I will add that your students are also generating employment. Yeah. Saibao?
Well, I think I missed something in my initial. I talked about imagination, but ability to express that properly and productively is coding. I think in the future is, I mean, even 22 years ago, or maybe 38 years ago, I always said, if you don't know coding, you're probably the future. You will not be able to excel. So yes, the subject foundation is good. So if you really want to excel, come to the industry, you need to come with at least two languages in terms of that you can code to express your imagination. So without coding know-how, it's very difficult to find a job. Not very difficult. I think in geospatial is important. As a 3D geospatial, even more important. And if you want to find a good job to learn, even if you become an entrepreneur in the future, you must know coding very well. Without that, it will be not only difficult, it could be basically impossible in the future to find a good job.
Thanks so much. So we have got 3 C's and 1 H. 3 C's being curiosity, creativity, and coding. But I think that we should land on the same H to have a happy life, like what John said. Yeah. So with this, I hand this back to Reginald, who I think have some prizes for us. Maybe a lucky draw, Reginald?
Hey, Joseph. No, not so much of a lucky draw, but I think definitely it's a lucky draw in a case whereby we have 2 wonderful panels right after this that we can catch. So a very big thank you to Joseph, Professor Chon, Dr. Wang, Professor Sulin, Saibao for this wonderful and exciting discussion we have at the GeoEducation panel. Like what we can do is, the parting word is that find your interest and find your way to be like a sexy GIS champion and not so much of a GIS monkey. So I hope this session provides everyone with a different perspective on how geospatial education can help you open doors to the varying career opportunities that is out there. So thank you all for tuning into the GeoEducation webinar. And before we go, please check out our events by scanning the QR code that is found on the screen right now and join our conversations using the hashtag SgGeoFest. And with that, I would like to thank you and hope to see you in our subsequent RGYF panels that's happening throughout the rest of this afternoon. So in the upcoming RGYF session, we have the GeoEducation panel 2, where we will introduce everyone a little bit more about the geospatial data analysis that's out there. So that will be happening around 3 p.m. And with that, we wish you a pleasant afternoon. And thank you to our
Thank
panel.
you, Reginald. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, panelists. Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.